Andrew Jackson Foster. He's always smiling, you know? He's always smiling. He just seems so sincere, so genuine. Every time I look at him, I'm like, this seems like a cool dude to hang out with. He seems like he would just find something good even in the worst situation, you know? I like this guy. He just seems like a cool guy. Hold on, guys. I'm looking for what I'm going to read about him. I got it right here. Thank you, Backpacker, for bringing up the resources. So while I'm doing that, guys, your guys' job is to read about Andrew Jackson Foster. Look up some resources about him while I'm talking. And if you find some good stuff like Carm did, I'll bring it up there and we'll look at it together, okay? Profiles of African American missionaries is what I'm going to be doing here, okay? Let's check this out. Shortly after arriving in Accra, Ghana, West Africa, in the spring of 1989, my husband, Reverend Rodney Reinerson, and I entered the office of the Ghana National Association for the Deaf, and were surprised to see a large photograph of Andrew Foster. My husband had met Andrew Foster at the IFFA conference in Chicago in 1957 and had not seen him since. At that time, Andrew Foster had asked a number of missionaries to the deaf how he might become a missionary to Africa to work among the people who are deaf there. In 1957, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod did not have any missionaries to the deaf who were deaf themselves. The members of the IFFA conference suggested he try elsewhere to get certified as a missionary and gave him several suggestions to where he might apply. While visiting the deaf man in the office who signed American Signed English, we learned that Andrew Foster had indeed come to Ghana and opened the first schools for the deaf in that country and had spread the wonderful good news of Jesus to the deaf people in Ghana. This dude is dope. Just look at his bio and just look at what I'm reading about already. By the way, this is, of course, by Rhoda Reinerson and Berta Foster. These are Berta Foster was Andrew Foster's wife before he passed in a tragic accident, and Berta was a missionary. Okay, continuing on. We had come to the country because missionaries there had a need to communicate with deaf people. We did not know whether we would be able to understand this people's sign language. As a deaf man was using American Signed English, we knew we had no real problems. This was the language Andrew Foster learned after he became deaf, and he taught this language to the deaf people in Ghana. Also, upon questioning them, we learned that they were well grounded in the Bible and its truths. Now, let me stop there. Hebrew Israelites are going over to Ghana now, specifically the IUIC, the Israel United in Christ. What do they do when they go over there? They just tell the people they're Jews, supposedly, you're real Israelites, and, you've got to become of this exclusive club in which you're the only ethnicities who are acceptable to God, and one day you're going to be masters over white servants and stuff like that, right? And Hamites, of course, they teach. Okay. They ain't doing nothing for those folks, though. They just go over there and they debate a couple pastors who, probably only, God bless their soul, only have one or two books because that's all they can afford a lot of times in those contexts, and act like they're big men and put it on video about how they slashed some Christian pastor in Ghana. That's what IUIC's doing. They ain't doing nothing like what Andrew Jackson Foster did, setting up schools for the deaf. So next time IUIC says Christianity hasn't done nothing for their people, read about Andrew Jackson Foster. What are you doing in Ghana, IUIC, compared to what he did? Nothing. Nothing. Just video and you running around like you're on a safari or something. It gets me real frustrated. Just look up IUIC Ghana and you guys will know what I'm talking about. All right, let's continue on. Imagine how difficult it is to be deaf and then to be a missionary and be black all at once. Because you see the era he lived in. We're in the 50s we're talking about. He's doing mission stuff in the 50s. There's plenty of segregation still around then. Not that it's gone away. I'm just saying it was like out in the open even more. Imagine. Carm says, Foster became the first deaf African-American to earn a bachelor's degree and the first to earn a master's degree from Eastern Mission University. This dude is dope, man. This dude is dope. Yeah, Mark Cleveland, good point. You are correct. But some of them now are branching out and saying that some of the Israelites supposedly were less left in West Africa. So IUIC is embracing that position now. Because you're correct, they don't think Africans are Hebrews. They're saying they're going to get the Israelites who didn't get on the boat. See what I'm saying? And they still have a view of Africans that they're not Israelites. But some got left, they teach. Okay. And after Andrew Foster had died in 1987, there was no one coming to visit them anymore. LCMS then became involved in bringing the saving gospel to these deaf people. Who was this Andrew Foster who went to Ghana, and why was he so important to the mission work in Kumasi? In order to understand it better, we need to do some research. First, we contacted the other deaf missionaries at the IFATHEC conference in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the summer of 1992 and in October 1993. We had an opportunity to visit Gallaudet University and are able to scan their files about Andrew Foster, and were able to learn about him. All right, let's find out about him. Here is what Andrew Foster wrote in How God Saved a Deaf Youth in 1977, renamed Deaf Ears Which Hear shortly after his death, accompanied with edits about his life and work by Berta Foster. Andrew Foster was born in Inslee, Alabama on June 27, 1925. His father was a member of the Church of Christ and his mother a member of the AMEZ Church. That's AMEZ. Excuse me. Andrew and his siblings went either with father or mother to church on Sundays. At age 11, he became deaf through spinal meningitis. All right, so I'm not going to read all the things that he wrote there. I'm going to kind of read mainly the other parts about him, okay? God enabled Andrew Jackson Foster to overcome his physical and spiritual handicaps as well as educational and racial barriers. He moved to Michigan for further education, but since he was a minor, 17 years old, and his parents were residents of Alabama, he was barred from the Michigan School for the Deaf. Unable to go to school, he took job after job, like in a restaurant, and then at Ford Motor Company and Motor Products in Detroit. His draft classification during World War II was 4F due to his deafness. There was such a demand for civilian workers that he had no difficulty in finding jobs. Undaunted, he eventually took a night factory job, attended the Detroit Institute of Commerce by day, and studied high school correspondence during odd moments. This dude is something else. Sorry, okay, I'm continuing reading on. These guys are amazing folks. Andrew later zoomed through the colleges, earning 3 degrees in 5 years. Who does that? He entered Gallaudet College in 1951. He was the second black student and the first one to graduate in 1954. He received a BA in education. According to Reverend William Ludwig, a classmate at Gallaudet, he went around the Washington, D.C. area, Maryland, especially around Newport News, Virginia, spreading the gospel while he was a student. This dude is earning degrees like nothing and meanwhile evangelizing folks. I mean, this is another guy I want to know. And guess what? When we see Andrew Jackson Foster in heaven, he's not going to need to use sign language anymore. His hearing is going to be restored in his glorified body. Isn't that a beautiful thing? Right now, I think he can hear singing in heaven because I believe, well, he doesn't have his glorified body, but I still think he can, right? Anyways, sorry. Where did I lost track of where I was. Oh, man, okay. Pastor Ludwig stated that Andrew was a very independent person. While he was at Gallaudet College, he was looking at an almanac and was astonished to learn that there were no deaf schools in most of the countries of Africa. From then on, he felt compelled to go to Africa to establish schools and at the same time to teach the students about Christianity. Isn't that a beautiful plan? He attended summer sessions at Hampton Institute. Andrew Foster was the first black person to receive a master's degree from Eastern Munich University in his planting in 1955. His degree was in special education. In 1956, he received a bachelor's degree in missions from Seattle Pacific College. Furthering his studies, he took some post-master's classes at Wayne State University in Detroit, which had a famous oral deaf education program at the time. So again, today's show is educators and intellectuals, so you can see how I'd put him in the intellectual category, right? Man, wait a minute. Am I? Okay, I'm just looking at this. I've got to skip some of this. Okay, I was wondering kind of how this would kind of go. I'm like, as far as timing on this, it's a little tricky to map it all out. Let me go over here about what he does when he gets to West Africa. I'm skipping a few paragraphs here in this book. In 1960, when Andrew was working with his second school in Nigeria, he invited Berta to work in his first school in Ghana. As time went on, they found that they understood each other so well that they saw that the Lord led them for each other. They were married on January 29, 1961. They were blessed with 5 children. Andrew was named the 1962 Man of the Year by the Alpha Sigma Phi fraternity of Gallaudet College. In 1970, Gallaudet conferred upon Andrew a Doctorate of Humane Letters degree. In 1980, he received an Outstanding Alumnus Award from Eastern Michigan, and in 1982, an Alumni Medallion Award from Seattle Pacific. In 1960, he established a school for the deaf in Ibadan, Nigeria, and 2 more in 1962, and Gugu and Kana also in Nigeria. Then in 1974, the first French-speaking school for the deaf was started in Ivory Coast. In 1975, Andrew, Berta, and their family came to Flint, Michigan for furlough for a year. However, Berta had a bout with cancer in 1976. Berta stayed home in the U.S. where she worked in the missions office. So, Andrew made his trips to Africa for about 6 months every year. During this time, he began work in other parts of Africa by establishing schools for the deaf in Togo and Chad in 1976, Senegal, Benin, Cameroon, and Central African Republic in 1977, Zaire, which is now Congo, in 1979, Burkina Faso in 1980, Burundi in 1981, and Gabon in 1982. So 31 schools and 2 centers were established, and about the same number of Sunday schools and Bible study groups in those countries, and 4 others, Kenya, Sierra Leone, Congo, and Guinea in the 1980s. In the last year of his life, he also did his research and efforts in the development of other countries. This dude was going to the end. Mali, Uganda, Ethiopia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, and Rwanda. Andrew Foster was instrumental in sending a large number of African students to American colleges to receive further education. The first student, Seth Tet Uklu of Ghana, arrived at Gallaudet in 1961. So he'd take him, and then he would get educated in the States and then come back, was what he would do. Now, I can't read everything else in here, but he was going to Kenya, and there was a tragic plane crash in 1987. It crashed in Rwanda, and he was on board, and he died. And so this is still a need, deaf missions work, you know? Let me read this last paragraph. On October 22nd, 2004, Gallaudet University dedicated an auditorium in Andrew Foster's name, calling him Father of Deaf Education in Africa. It was his privilege to see a number of deaf souls saved and become Christian leaders. God certainly used one deaf man in a most marvelous way to lead many to his saving love. And if you want to read more about this, look up the Christian Mission for the Deaf, cmdeaf.org. cmdeaf.org. What's up, MJ Jackson? How you doing? I know it's late for some of you guys, but you guys are holding it down. All right, yeah. Yep, there you go. That's right, Dominus, you did. I'm glad you guys are getting into this, checking out stuff. Okay. So, yeah, you're right, Lady Justice. This is good. You guys got good. You guys got great comments here. Great comments. All right, so let me go to the next guy. I mean, but you could just tell this is a sweet soul of a man, and yet, yeah, he was deaf. But you can tell that God also gifted him incredibly intellectually, you know? You can tell. Street